Incredible moment. Billionaire discovered unexpected connection as Janitor's daughter spoke manned. Jack Collins stood before the shimmering skyline of Boston, the weight of his father's legacy pressing heavily on his shoulders. The city he had conquered felt more like a gilded cage, each glass facade reflecting both his wealth and the hollow, restless void within. Sure, he was a self-made billionaire with accolades spilling forth like confetti, but beneath the polished surface lurked a sense of disconnection. Memories of his father, the ruthless businessman who had sacrificed family for profit, haunted him. Jack studied the skyline, the glint of the glass towers creating a jarring reminder of a past he couldn't escape in the office. Jack's assistant buzzed him about the latest investor meeting, the usual parade of yuppies eager for quick profits just around the corner. But this time, he felt something shift. Maria Lopez had ignited an unexpected spark. When he hired her, he thought she'd merely offer fresh insight into his stagnating company. Instead, her passion for artificial intelligence became a mirror reflecting his own lost dreams. Her brilliance breathed life into the dead corners of his soul, and for the first time, Jack dared to consider the legitimacy of a connection that reached beyond the spreadsheet. But two worlds loomed large above them, his gold-plated privilege and her humble reality. Could they truly bridge that divide? Before he could settle those questions, the team assembled for what would be their first brainstorming session. As Maria spoke, her confidence filled the room, rendering the stale atmosphere alive. She articulated her ideas with clarity and intensity. She was unapologetically ambitious. A part of him wondered if her energy illuminated the path he'd neglected. But what if it was just a fleeting moment? Inside him, doubt festered like an untreated wound. Had life always been living in the shadows of others, including this girl who was breaking barriers? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But a betrayal of purpose began to curl at the edges of his thoughts. The excitement faded against the backdrop of mounting pressure from investors who yearned for immediate rewards. Jack felt the tightening noose of their expectations, a reminder that he had ventured into a realm that simultaneously terrified and beckoned him. Would he exploit Maria's talents for profit? The thought churned like rotten food in his stomach. Every glance at her inspired him, but now it was as if greed whispered to him, imploring him to use her brilliance without acknowledging her worth. What would his father advise him in that moment? Would he laugh at the idea of recognizing someone so different from him? Jack's heartbeat quickened as anguish clawed its way to the surface. If he chose the path of exploitation, was he any better than the very legacy he detested? As Maria unveiled positively revolutionary research, realization seared through him like lightning. This was the moment when he'd have to confront the toxic legacy he'd inherited, the junction where greed and integrity had a single, defined fork. Faced with a surfacing dilemma that threatened to unravel everything, Jack's phone buzzed ominously. His father's name lit up the screen, and dread coiled within him like a snake poised to strike. In this instant, every ambition Jack had crumbled against the weight of familial expectations. Would he stand firm, bolstered by the connection he barely understood, or surrender to the toxic cycle that had ensnared his family for generations? The phone continued to vibrate, pulling Jack back from the precipice of inner turmoil. With a shaking hand, he glanced at the screen, its bright light mocking him with memories of authority that he had both respected and resented. This either could be a chance to define his own path or a pitfall back into the abyss of his father's influence. A suffocating silence filled the room, his thoughts tangled in confrontations he had avoided for too long. Jack, everything okay? Maria's voice pierced through the fog, laced with genuine concern. Her warm gaze anchored him, pulling him back to the present. Yeah, fine. The word felt hollow, a paper-thin barrier. This moment tested the very core of who he aspired to be. Disappointment creased her brow. Jack desperately wanted to clarify, to invite her into the whirlwind of his conflict. But words evaded him. Instead, he chose to focus on the shared potential in the room. As he shifted mentally to the discussion at hand, Maria was unrelenting. Her ideas were fresh, intricate, weaving together innovative strands of technology that sparked excitement within the entire team. Yet, amidst the vitality of her presence, Jack continuously wrestled with an impending sense of betrayal. By using her ideas to propel his wealth, was he not repeating the very mistakes that had led him to disdain his father's legacy? The team applauded her concepts, nodding in approval. Pride began to swell in Jack's chest. He felt relieved, but the relief slashed through him like a knife. He was both their leader and an opportunist, teetering on the edge of exploitation. Each cheer from his team rang hollow against the deeper realization that Maria's dreams deserved more than the confines of his financial venturing. She needed championing, not merely as an asset but as an equal. When the meeting concluded, the air buzzed with excitement, but the wait remained. Jack asked Maria to stay behind as the others filed out. He stood across from her, a chasm of uncertainty still separating them, but curiosity and apprehension clashed within him. "Maria, you know your ideas could change our company and maybe the industry," he began, measuring his words carefully. "But I can't shake the feeling that I need to do more with what you're bringing to the table." Her eyebrows arched, surprised perhaps by his candor. "What do you mean?" I want to make sure you're recognized for your contributions, not just seen as a means to an end." The confession felt raw and laced with vulnerability, a rare moment stripped of the polished billionaire persona he had perfected. Her expression softened, revealing insight and understanding. "Jack, if you believe in this project, let us work on it together. I want us to build something that connects those two worlds, yours and mine, without sacrifice or exploitation." His heart surged. Maybe this was what he needed. A rallying cry for personal transformation. An invitation to redefine relationships founded on integrity and collaboration. He couldn't help but think that perhaps, just perhaps, it wasn't too late to forge a new path. Not just for himself but for countless others trapped in a legacy of greed. "I want that too," he admitted, resolve sharpening his voice. "Let's create a business model that reflects those values. A collaboration where we both grow and thrive." Jack could feel the distant weight of his father's expectations begin to lift. But as he leaned forward, a second, more daunting thought crept in. What would his resolution cost him? Would he ultimately face adversaries not only atop the corporate ladder but those he loved? The weight of the task ahead loomed larger than ever. As he met Maria's gaze, a sense of purpose sparked within him. Jack knew that steering this ship would require more than business acumen. It would demand genuine commitment to a new legacy. And with that commitment, the next challenge would arise. A confrontation of values that came not only from boards and balance sheets but from deep within. As they exchanged ideas, the phone buzzed again, a stark reminder of the ever-consuming corporate world. Taking a deep breath, he looked at Maria, resolute. Let us disrupt their expectations. But just as they were ready to forge ahead, the realization hit him. How many personal and professional battles lay ahead as they pursued this vision? The streets were clear for now, but shadows of the past loomed ever larger, hungry for retribution. The moment to face them had not yet come, but it would soon, whether he was ready or not. Jack spent the next few days navigating the turbulent waters of his new resolve. The office hummed with anticipation, but the lightness of purpose he had felt with Maria began to mingle with trepidation. He began poring over every detail of their project, sketching out business models that emphasized transparency and equitable returns, eager yet anxious about how they would be received by stakeholders who thrived on exploitation. Maria's energy fueled his passion. She dove into data, finding connections between their technological innovations and sustainable practices. Her enthusiasm was infectious, but as he sat across from her in their makeshift strategy sessions, Jack was keenly aware of the chasm between ideals and reality. Each conversation about their shared vision was a heady reminder of the storm that lurked just beyond their collaborative bubble. "Jack, we can truly make a difference," Maria said one afternoon, her eyes sparkling with hope. "Imagine pitching this to investors who typically follow traditions. They could be convinced to be part of a model that actually values, but what if they don't want change? Jack interrupted, frustration spilling over. What if our vision threatens their status quo? We're entering a landscape dominated by those who what? Maria challenged, leaning forward. Only care about profits? If we don't disrupt that, then we're no different from anyone else. You want to make waves, you need to be prepared for the backlash. Her words struck like a lightning bolt, illuminating the fear he'd buried. Jack had been so focused on transforming the external world that he had overlooked the tempest brewing inside. Was he willing to risk everything, including those he cared about, to challenge an industry that had shaped his existence? The following day brought clarity in the form of an unexpected call. It was Andrew, his father's right-hand man. A voice that struck both dread and familiarity within him. Jack, we need to talk. Your father has noticed the buzz coming from your company. He wants in on the ground floor of whatever it is you and that Maria are scheming. Jack's stomach tightened. He couldn't face the old specter of his father's ambition, especially now that he nearly shed the shadow of cold expectations. What makes you think I want his involvement? Because he's willing to back you financially. Think of what that could mean for your project, Andrew coaxed, persistent. Your father knows the industry, and he'll strengthen your position. The proposition sparked a wave of conflicting emotions. He could reclaim the financial security his childhood had provided, yet it came with strings that could strangle his newfound ideals. I'll think about it, Jack replied, the words tasting bitter on his tongue. As he hung up, the intoxicating excitement of disruption mingled painfully with the heavy weight of lineage. Could he betray himself? Even for a moment of comfort, he spent that night wrestling with possibilities. As dawn broke, he sought solace in a familiar routine morning runs through the quiet streets. With each pounding footstep, clarity began to seep through the chaos. This act was about more than crafting a business. It was about reclaiming his identity, redefining who he was outside of his familial legacy. Returning to the office, determination coursed through him. He marched to Maria's desk, adrenaline throbbing in his chest. What if we shifted our approach? We focus on values but also prepare for the inevitable pushback. We don't just want to change perceptions. We prepare to confront opposition. Maria smiled, a companion in this shared revolution. What are you thinking? Let us draft a proposal showcasing our plans and prepare for every possible challenge. If they want to bring us down, they need to know we won't back down willingly. As he took his seat before the computer, his resolve pulsated with a steady rhythm, an anthem of ambition and strength. The stakes heightened. He embraced the turning point he had been craving. The battle was only just beginning, and the fight for his vision would lead him right into the jaws of his father's empire. But when the phone buzzed again, its tone carried a different weight, one of urgency that twisted Jack's gut. Who else wanted a piece of his ambition, and at what cost? His heart quickened, knowing that the following moment could change everything he was working for. Jack stared at the vibrating phone, the urgency skewering his previous sense of control. His pulse raced as he grabbed the device and checked the screen, an unknown number with a familiar area code. The knot in his stomach tightened further. Who could be calling now when he had so much on the line? He took a deep breath and answered. Hello? Jack, it's Emily from the Sustainability Conference last month. The voice on the line carried a blend of excitement and urgency. I didn't expect you to pick up, but I have something crucial to discuss. Jack furrowed his brow, a mix of curiosity and dread coursing through him. What is it? I think you need to know that some investors are talking. They're interested in what you and Maria are working on. But there's a catch. Jack leaned back in his chair, tension radiating through him. The buzz in the market was unmistakable, but he had also anticipated potential repercussions. What kind of catch? It's not just about finances. They want you to present your project at the upcoming investor showcase, and they're urging you to add someone to your team. A consultant who has connections with big names, Emily explained, her voice urgent. He's extremely influential but notoriously conservative. I've heard he might even side with your father if things go that way. The revelation hit Jack hard, each sentence weighing on him like a heavy anchor. He had anticipated pushback, But this? An ultimatum dangled before him, threatening the very essence of the vision he and Maria had forged. Why would I introduce someone whose principles could clash with ours? It's either this or risk being sidestepped entirely, Emily said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial tone. You'll face them without allies. If they see your project as radical, it'll be easy to dismiss it. Jack felt the storm inside him grow, each word fanning the flames of uncertainty. Was his commitment to authenticity worth sacrificing his integrity? The thought of a strategist more aligned with the industry's exploitative tendencies kneed him directly in the gut. Jack, you need to think strategically, she pressed. Are you truly prepared to face the greed? Because if you don't act now, someone else will take your vision away from you. Your father will make sure of it. With a sigh that felt like it had been ripped from his chest, Jack closed his eyes and envisioned their presentation. Lights dimmed, all eyes on him and Maria. Would they stand for genuine change or buckle under pressure? The stakes were immeasurable, but a flicker of resolve ignited within him. Tell me more about this consultant. The ensuing conversation felt like a critical decision point in his narrative, each flicker of insight revealing layers to the power dynamics he had long tried to avoid. As he jotted down notes, he realized that this was no longer just about ideals. It was about practical strategies to protect what they had built. It was about standing resolute even in a hostile environment. Hours later, Jack walked into the office where Maria was refocused, engrossed in a document. He felt a surge of both trepidation and excitement. He approached her desk, and the weight of the phone call hung in the air, a potential fork in their path. We need to talk. I just learned that our project is garnering attention, but we might need to make a compromise if we want to play in the investor arena. Maria lifted her gaze, and the resolve in her expression mirrored his own dread. What kind of compromise? We may have to consider bringing on a consultant who could help us navigate these waters, but he's linked to conservative interests, including my father's. This could reshape our vision entirely. Against the backdrop of their ambitious plans, the heavy implications of that possibility loomed. Would they be willing to reshape their ideals for survival? Jack knew a formidable challenge confronted them, and standing still wasn't an option. As they exchanged thoughts, the stakes transformed from abstract to palpable, forcing Jack to confront his deepest loyalties. But just as clarity began to settle in, Maria's phone rang, shattering their moment of resolve. Expectations loomed ahead, and uncertainty returned like a phantom he could not ignore. Whom did this call concern, and how might it impact their plans moving forward? The familiar thrill of potential danger surged through him, igniting the next round of conflict that would challenge them both. Jack's instincts flared as Maria answered her phone, the intensity in the room shifting rapidly. He resumed pacing, a habit that calmed his swirling thoughts yet only amplified his anxiety. He needed clarity both for himself and for their project. The phone conversation with Emily had rattled his foundations, and now he was teetering on the edge of a decision that felt as monumental as the vision he had fought to realize. As Maria spoke in hushed tones, Jack's mind raced over the implications of the console. Could they really accept help from someone aligned with values that felt alien to their mission? The idealism that had driven him from the start was in peril, and the weight of history hung around him. Could he negotiate with an element of his past without losing the essence of what had brought him to this point? He caught a few snippets of Maria's conversation, her voice steady despite the potential storm looming before them. She was asking questions, demanding clarity, and Jack admired her focus. But he felt a growing urgency to engage. He could not stand on the sidelines while their future teetered precariously. Finally, Maria hung up and turned to him, her expression a mixture of determination and worry. That was Greg, the investor from last month. He wants to meet in an hour. He has heard the buzz, and he has a bold offer, one that could shake up our approach entirely. Jack's stomach twisted. Another layer of complexity that nudged him away from the original vision. What does he want us to do? Maria leaned forward, her eyes narrowing with intensity. He wants to streamline our proposal. If we bring the consultant on board, position them as a guiding hand for us, it might open some serious doors. The kind of funding that can not only elevate our project but transform the impact we could have. He believes this could benefit the startup on a scale we never imagined. Jack shook his head. But at what cost, Maria? We built this with the goal of revolutionizing sustainability without compromise. What if this consultant's involvement changes the core of what we're trying to achieve? Maria sighed, sitting back in her chair. I know, Jack. But what if we can guide that influence? The stakes are high. This is about survival, about making real change or being sidelined forever. The tension in the room swelled, pressing in around them as they both wrestled with the implications, the reality of their situation crystallizing into sharp focus. Jack felt as if he were standing at a precipice, the air thick with doubt and possibility. He had always viewed change as an opportunity to innovate, to advance toward a shared dream. Yet, the notion of compromising that dream gnawed at his core. I won't let them control the narrative, Jack replied, resolve hardening his voice. But maybe, just maybe, this could serve as a strategic advantage. If we can control the terms and bring our ideals into the consultation, we can keep our integrity intact. Maria's eyes flashed with recognition, a spark igniting within her that echoed his own. So we go in with a plan. We need to outmaneuver them at their own game. Let us ensure our vision remains our North Star, regardless of who joins the table. As they strategized, moving pieces around in Jack's mind like a game of chess, he felt the walls of uncertainty begin to shift. Maybe this wasn't the end of their dream, but rather an opportunity to refine their approach, challenging and evolving in ways he hadn't anticipated. The minutes flew by, and Jack felt a sense of urgency building. When he glanced at the clock, he realized they had only moments to prepare. They needed to agree on their boundaries, their core values, and above all, their shared commitment to authenticity. In that whirlwind of thoughts and strategies, an idea struck him like a lightning bolt, a risky proposition that would secure their interests without yielding their integrity. What if we present a compelling counteroffer at that meeting? We should state that while we're open to collaboration, the consultant must align with our mission. That way, we put the pressure back on them. Jack mused, his excitement visibly growing. Maria beamed, momentarily distracted from their anxiety. That could shake things up, Jack. Puts us in control. But we will have to be ready for pushback. As they exchanged rapid ideas, Jack's mind danced between their collective vision and the upcoming confrontation. A fire kindled inside him. This was more than a mere transaction. It was a defining moment for who they were and what they stood for. But an unsettling thought surfaced just as their strategy solidified in a tentative plan. What if the resistance they faced was not merely from the investors or the consultant, but from within? Jack felt a twinge of doubt. Could they hold true to their ideals amidst the pressures that would come? Are we sure this is the way to go? He asked, a moment of vulnerability cracking through his determined facade. What if we lose sight of ourselves in the process? The tension thickened once more, and the journey ahead started to feel more daunting than ever. As Maria looked at him, he could sense her quest for cooperation mingling with her own fears, the same reflections swirling in her eyes. The time has come to face what we fear most, Maria said, her voice unwavering, and with that, the rest of the unanswered questions began to flood back, a clash of values on the horizon. And Jack knew it wouldn't just be a negotiation between powerful voices. It would be a confrontation with everything he had buried. It was a moment that could either bolster everything they worked for or unravel it altogether. As they wrapped up their discussion, the stark reality loomed large. The meeting was imminent, and the direction of their future was only a conversation away. Jack stood in front of the mirror, barely recognizing the person staring back at him. His hair was disheveled, and the timbre of his expression echoed the turmoil brewing inside. This meeting with Greg and the potential consultant felt like standing on a tightrope above an abyss. It was exhilarating yet terrifying, filled with the promise of success, but laced with the peril of personal betrayal. He took a deep breath to steady himself. He had always believed in principle over profit, dreaming of a world where their project could pivot the conversation about sustainability into action. Yet here he was, grappling with a betrayal of those very ideals. What if he bent his values just this once, just to gain a foothold in the industry? The swirling questions gnawed at him. His trust in the mission was firm, but the vivid mental picture of their project failing haunted him. Jack felt like a ship lost at sea, navigating through dark waters with only the faintest glimmer of land ahead. Maria knocked gently on the door, pulling him from his thoughts. "Are you ready?" Her steady voice was a lifeline, anchoring him to the present. "Yeah, let us do this." He straightened his jacket, a symbolic gesture of commitment to the cause they had nurtured together. As they stepped into the conference room, the atmosphere was charged with expectation. Greg was already seated at the head of the table, a mixture of confidence and impatience exuding from him. To his right sat a well-dressed consultant with a disarming smile that struck Jack as anything but trustworthy. "Glad you could make it," Greg said, gesturing for them to sit. "We're really excited about the possibilities here." Jack and Maria exchanged a quick glance, a burst of unspoken communication passing between them, a shared resolve, a renewed commitment to their vision. "Let us get straight to it," Jack encouraged, keen to establish their stance. "We understand there's significant funding on the table, but we want to ensure our vision remains untainted." The words felt heavy yet liberating as they escaped him, resonating with the convictions he had cultivated. The consultant raised an eyebrow, his smile wavering ever so slightly. "A bold stance, Jack. But you need to understand that in this industry, compromise is the name of the game." Jack felt his chest tighten. "Compromise shouldn't come at the expense of our mission. We're here to make a real difference, not just profit margins." Each word felt like an arrow shot with precision, and he could see Maria nodding in agreement. Greg leaned forward, curiosity replacing initial skepticism. "What if your ideals could mesh with profit? What if we could position you as pioneers of a new approach, but with a bit of outside guidance?" As they continued discussing terms, Jack's confidence began to waver under the sheer force of the consultant's sales pitch. Every articulation convinced him of an alternative reality where their original vision could be drowned out by commercial interests. Focused sharp again, he centered his thoughts on the decision looming ahead. Could they truly harness this opportunity without preserving their values? "Here's an idea," Jack interjected suddenly. "What if we present our proposal where we define the boundaries for any consultation? You agree to stay aligned with our mission, and we can see how your guidance can fit in without compromising our integrity." The room fell silent, tension wrapping around them as the weight of that proposition settled in. Maria's wide eyes reflected both surprise and pride. She sat a little taller, as if sharing in the courage he had unearthed. Greg's expression turned from intrigue to suspicion. "That's a strong claim, Jack. Are you prepared to back it up?" Jack felt an empowering rush, the echo of his own voice a reminder that he was the one at the table too. "We can reach out to frameworks and data that highlight our projections, the positive impact we're creating without external influence. If you want a partnership, then it has to start with mutual respect for our core values." With that sentence, he sensed the shift. It was no longer just about funding. It was about asserting who they were, transforming the narrative from one of desperation to one of empowerment. As tension mounted, he could feel the stakes rising higher. Maria's glance suggested solidarity, more than just partners. They were aligned in purpose, staring into the abyss with newfound resolve. Yet a nagging thought lingered. Could this fiery moment hold? Would they be able to handle the pressures that would undoubtedly come from even their best intentions? The discussion hovered like a storm cloud, shadows threatening to downpour. As Greg and the consultant exchanged looks, Jack wondered if the battles they would need to win were just beginning. Now, as he stood on the precipice of this pivotal offer, he realized the true challenge lay ahead. Would they face intimidation, or could they spark the industry's change they so fervently desired? "Let us reconvene after you think it through," Greg said, a cautious optimism lightening the air. "Absolutely," Jack replied, even as doubt began weaving itself into his resolve. With that, they exited the meeting, each step echoing the uncertainties that loomed over their dreams. As they stepped back into the blaring sunlight, the path ahead twisted like a labyrinth. Could they navigate it without losing themselves along the way? And as Jack pondered this, he felt the weight of the next step they needed to prepare for the inevitable clashes of values that would come during their journey. The true test was just around the corner. Jack paced the length of his modest office, his mind racing. The sunlight spilling through the window illuminated papers strewn across his desk. Project proposals, sustainability plans, and research articles marked with annotations that reflected his fervent desire to change things for the better. But now they seemed like artifacts from another epoch, overshadowed by the potential alliance with Greg and the enigmatic consultant. The meeting had left him teetering on a precipice of hope and uncertainty. What did it say about him that the prospect of potential success made him question his very values? He had always viewed himself as a purveyor of change and advocate for integrity over profit, but here he was, weighing compromise against aspiration. "Hey, Jack." Deep in thought, Maria's voice broke the silence, grounding him momentarily. She stood at the doorway, arms crossed, eyebrows raised with affection and impatience. "Yeah, just unraveling this whole arrangement. I don't want us to lose sight of our mission. I feel like we're standing on the edge of something significant, but it could easily lead us astray," he admitted, gesturing vaguely toward the mess of documents that felt like symbols of his inner conflict. Her presence was a stabilizing force. "We've always fought for integrity, remember? No one can undermine that unless we let them. How can we ensure we remain true to ourselves?" Jack's heart began to settle as they explored the facets of their predicament together. They had navigated previous obstacles: market resistance, funding rejections, and personal doubts, but this moment felt different. It embodied a crossroads where ambition could polarize their values. "Perhaps we can research other partnerships that align closely with our philosophy," Jack proposed, pacing less now. "If we approach this carefully, we can draft a framework that highlights our core principles, allowing us to define our boundaries even before we go back to Greg." Maria considered his words, nodding slowly. "That sounds promising. That way, we don't run the risk of drowning in whatever their expectations might be. We must also prepare ourselves for pushback, though. People like Greg and that consultant are not going to take no for an answer easily." Jack felt the bristling anticipation of challenge surging within him. He began to visualize how they could assert their identity while simultaneously projecting confidence. "We should create messaging that defines our goals clearly, what we stand for and what we want to yield on," he declared with more certainty. He could feel the embers of his resolve reigniting. It was about time he established not just a presence in the industry but also a voice that echoed their values. It was about building a reputation rooted in authenticity, not just in profitability. As they worked late into the evening, Jack discovered more than professional strategies. He unearthed a sense of purpose that had been concealed beneath layers of doubt. He drafted a mission statement refined to perfection, intertwining respect for nature with a compelling vision for their company's future. Yet, just as he finished refining the words that had felt so elusive, a thought prickled in his mind. How would Greg receive this new approach? Would it be welcomed, respected, or interpreted as defiance? Jack knew he couldn't hold back now. "Maria, how do you think Greg will react to our revised boundaries?" he asked, gnawing on the possibility of confrontation. She hesitated, contemplating the potential consequences. "If he's aligned with your vision, he'll appreciate the clarity. But if he's simply seeking profit margins, we might find ourselves at an impasse." Jack found himself torn. On one hand, a burgeoning sense of conviction; on the other, a fear of the impending clash with someone more experienced in navigating such treacherous waters. "Then we need to prepare for face-to-face negotiations that uphold our values even if it ruffles feathers," he declared, his determination resolving into a commitment that as they wrapped up for the night, Jack felt a gaping chasm of uncertainty. What lay ahead was an impending confrontation that could redefine everything they had built together. Leaving the office, he glanced back one last time. Amid the chaos of the city, he envisioned the path ahead more clearly, though it remained fraught with hazards. Was he ready to enter the labyrinth of negotiations, knowing that maintaining their mission could come at a higher personal cost? The air crackled with electricity as he approached the door, unaware that exactly how high the price would be was about to be revealed. This was just the beginning of a journey filled with moral dilemmas that would test the very core of his identity. Jack stood in the sleek, glass-walled conference room the following week, a stark contrast to his modest office. The polished table glistened under the harsh fluorescent lights, and the ambient hum of the city below felt like a constant reminder of the tumult outside. He felt oddly like an intruder in a world defined by expectations that felt foreign to him. Across the table, Greg and the consultant, an intimidating figure with a calm demeanor, reviewed their proposal with an intensity that made Jack's heart race. Their earlier conversations about potential partnership had fostered a delicate blend of excitement and apprehension in him. This meeting was the moment he could define their stakes. Except uncertainty lingered, gnawing at the edges of his confidence. How do we ensure that our project remains true to our environmental commitment? Jack mustered, his voice slicing through the tension. This partnership has fantastic potential, but we won't compromise our values in the process. Greg exchanged a glance with the consultant, who leaned back in his chair, analyzing Jack as if he were a puzzle to be solved. You need to understand that in business, sometimes sacrifices have to be made. The consultant's tone was ice cold, cloaked in authority. Jack's stomach tightened. He sensed the professionals around him were fully accustomed to negotiation on their terms, but he refused to let doubt cloud his resolve. With all due respect, we need to be clear on this. If we sacrifice our core beliefs, then what are we building? His heart thudded in response to the pushback surging in him. Maria had prepped him for this, reminding him that he was not alone. They had worked together to construct boundaries, firmly planting their feet in a moment that could very well slip away from them. This partnership can be lucrative, but our mission is to foster true sustainability, he continued, building confidence around his words. I want none of us will be part of a project that undermines that commitment. He saw surprise flicker across Greg's face, which quickly morphed into a calculating gaze. Jack's heart raced as he recognized this moment as a test not just of the project, but of himself. Passion is commendable, Jack, but idealism can crush practicality, Greg replied. The words hung heavy in the air, laced with challenge, compelling Jack to confront the core of his beliefs. Perhaps my idealism is what's needed, he shot back, spurred on by adrenaline. After everything I've seen, we can break new ground without compromising our principles. But I need you to understand that we cannot go backward for the sake of profit. The tension in the room escalated as silence settled like a thick fog. Jack's pulse quickened, unsure if he was pushing too hard or standing his ground. But in that silence, he felt an unexpected clarity. The fight inside him was growing, fueled not merely by ambition but by the responsibility he felt for the future. The consultant glanced at Greg before responding. Your passion is noted, but if you choose to take this stance, understand that there will be risks on both sides, he cautioned. Jack realized then that this negotiation was transforming into a defining moment. More than seeking validation, he sought respect in the industry that had often dismissed ideals in favor of monetary gain. And I welcome those risks. I've dodged them before. They don't intimidate me, he asserted, determination crystallizing into something tangible. With this declaration, the very air around him shifted. He could see the wheels turning in Greg's mind, contemplating whether this determination would elevate their potential collaboration or be the catalyst for an impasse. As the meeting concluded, Jack felt both exhaustion and elation. The conflict ahead was palpable, and he understood that standing firm might alienate him from those more seasoned in the corporate world. Yet, through this ordeal, he couldn't help but embrace the idea that he was crafting a new identity, one rooted in authenticity. With every fiber of his being, he felt ready for what would come next. Even as the looming question flickered at the back of his mind, was he prepared to withstand the riptide of corporate conflict that awaited him? He had ignited a spark of revolution in his professional life, but could he maintain the flame? As he walked away from the conference room, a chilling realization dawned on him. This was just the beginning of a deeper struggle that would soon escalate, testing not only his ideals but his resilience against the machinery of an unforgiving industry. What had he truly awakened? In the days that followed, Jack found himself navigating a series of internal conflicts as he prepared for the next stage of negotiations. Each time he entered his office, the flickering screen of his computer felt like a portal to yet another reality. He stared at the walls adorned with reminders of environmental initiatives, feeling their weight pressing down on him. The vision he held wouldn't simply be tested by corporate partnerships but by the demands of the business world itself. Every email from Greg felt like a calculation, a test of Jack's willingness to bend. They sought strategies that would maximize profit margins while he weighed each suggestion against his growing belief in authenticity. The tension simmered within, igniting an unrelenting drive in him to reveal his core principles. Yet he still felt the edges of doubt creeping in. Was he truly equipped to advocate for a sustainable future against a tide that seemed determined to drown dreams? One afternoon, Maria dropped by unexpectedly, her bright presence cutting through the pallor of his lingering uncertainty. "You look like you've been hit by a bus," she remarked with a playful smirk. "What's going on?" "I'm feeling the pressure, Maria," Jack admitted, running a hand through his hair. "Every decision feels like a negotiation between what's ethical and what's expedient. I don't want to come off as an idealist who can't grasp reality. I want to lead change, not chase shadows." Maria leaned back against the edge of his desk, her brow furrowing in concern. "You've always had a unique perspective, Jack. That's your strength, not a weakness. Don't let them stifle your voice. It's what the industry needs more than ever." Her words sparked a fire within him, but the fear of isolation loomed large. He could feel the weight of potential backlash from his peers if he continued to push for a more authentic approach. That very fear had kept many innovators at bay. They clung to the familiar, choosing safety over the risk of criticism. Deciding that he had to be proactive, he took a leap of faith. Jack arranged a casual breakfast meeting with Greg and the consultants, aiming to present a more comprehensive vision for their partnership, one that intertwined profitability and sustainability. He meticulously prepared a presentation, detailing not just potential profits, but also the long-term brand loyalty and market advantages of prioritizing eco-friendly practices. He believed he could lead them to a new equilibrium, where ideals and profits did not conflict. As breakfast unfolded, he aligned his voice to command the attention of the room. With each point, he observed their expressions shift from skepticism to curiosity and, perhaps, dawning recognition. With every insight and rebuttal that rolled off his tongue, he realized he was beginning to forge a new identity. Not just an activist, but a strategist capable of molding the prevailing narratives of business practices. "Imagine if we position ourselves as the leaders of sustainability in this industry," he urged, allowing his passion to swell within him. "We could be pioneers. This is our chance to reshape expectations. It won't just be about profit margins. It will mean creating value that resonates through generations." It was exhilarating yet frightening, as Jack faced the reality that altering these narratives required much more than words. Yet, as he spoke, he recognized that seeds of change were germinating within the rooms he once felt out of place. But, with each argument presented, doubts cracked the surface of his newfound confidence. Would they truly listen, or would his vision be brushed aside, pigeonholed as the lofty dreams of an idealist? The meeting ended without any immediate resolution, but Jack sensed a shift. It wouldn't be smooth sailing. The waves were growing rougher. Still, he could feel a flicker of hope igniting a possibility that he was indeed becoming the change agent for which he longed. As he returned to his desk, a new sense of determination blossomed within him. Could he convert those flickers of hope into reality? He tightened his grip around his vision, while a question resonated in his mind, transforming into a mantra. How much was he willing to sacrifice in his quest for authentic leadership? The answer approached rapidly, intertwining with a growing awareness. Step by step, he was becoming a force of disruption within a stagnant ocean of conformity. Yet, with each movement forward, he knew there would be resistance. The stakes had risen, and he would soon need to confront the thresholds of authority that his newfound ambitions would challenge. Would he stand firm at those crucial moments? Or would the old fears once again cast shadows over the path he was forging? As the weeks unfurled, Jack embraced the whirlwind of preparations for the upcoming investor showcase, an event that had taken on mythical proportions in his mind. This was the moment that could solidify his commitment to sustainability and authenticity, or shatter everything he had fought for. Days turned into nights, and he poured himself into rehearsals, refining his pitch, sharpening his arguments, and weaving in Maria's insights as a testament to their dedication to change. His once distant aspirations had morphed into concrete objectives. He meticulously crafted a narrative that positioned their project not merely as a business opportunity but as a movement towards a sustainable future. Each bullet point outlined the far-reaching implications of their research, showcasing how embracing environmental ethics could yield remarkable financial returns. On the day of the showcase, anxiety coiled tightly around him like a vice. As he scanned the crowded hall filled with prospective investors, reporters, and industry professionals, Jack felt the gravity of what was at stake. This was about more than profits. It was about creating a legacy he could respect. With Maria by his side, they approached the stage, her confidence bolstering his own, a dual force ready to confront the naysayers with the weight of their vision. Jack took a deep breath, grounding himself in conviction and purpose. As he stepped into the spotlight and began to speak, he felt the nervousness start to fade. I stand before you today not just to share a business opportunity, but to invite you to be part of a conversation about the future. He began, the clarity in his voice echoing the resolve swelling within him. Our mission is to redefine how sustainability can coexist with profitability, creating a template for industries across the globe. With every slide, every compelling statistic, and every impassioned plea, Jack could feel the room shift. Eyes widened, murmurs of interest echoed in the corners, and the solidity of his intent crystallized into something tangible. He laid bare the ramifications of continued exploitative practices and the looming crisis facing their planet, while presenting the imperatives of their approach as a beacon of hope. Investing in sustainability means investing in our collective future. This is the time for pioneers, and we can lead the charge together, he concluded, the energy in the room vibrating with the fervor of possibility. As he stepped away from the podium, the applause erupted like a thunderstorm. For the first time, he saw genuine curiosity in the faces of the investors before him. They were leaning forward, eager to engage, to inquire how they could collaborate on this bold journey. Jack felt a rush of exhilaration combined with profound relief. He had broken through, after the presentation. In the fray of post-showcase conversations, Greg approached them, a smile softening his normally stern demeanor. Jack, you've truly brought something significant to the table, he acknowledged, extending a hand. Let us discuss the next steps. In that moment, the tides shifted. Jack realized he was not merely negotiating for survival. He was building a professional relationship founded on mutual respect and shared values. He felt himself stand taller, the shadows of doubt dissipating in the wake of validation. Days later, as contracts were drawn up, Jack reveled in the clarity of his vision manifesting into reality. Not only were they on track for funding, but they were also poised to influence the industry paradigm. Each signature, each agreement symbolized a step further away from the shackles of his family's legacy. Reflecting on their journey, Jack acknowledged the transformation he had undergone from a hesitant heir of wealth grasping for validation to a visionary leader entrenched in principles of integrity. He had embraced his personal power, championed a collaboration that honored equality, and forged connections that transcended his previous loneliness. The culmination of this endeavor was not merely funding but the very essence of fulfillment that arose from transforming his understanding of success. He had emerged atop the corporate landscape, not in search of validation, but with resounding confidence in the path he had carved as he stood beside Maria, the glow of achievement illuminating the room around them. A realization washed over him. They were no longer individuals tethered to disparate worlds. They had forged a partnership that combined the best of both. Jack, Maria said, breaking him from his reverie. We did it. This is just the start. I senti it? Yes, he replied, his heart brimming with optimism. This is just the beginning. Together, they had conquered the chasm that had once seemed insurmountable. Jack Collins was not just a billionaire anymore. He was a force for change, fully realized and unafraid, facing the future with dignity and ambition anchored in purpose. Remember, you need to subscribe now to ensure you stay updated with exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support our journey. Comment your thoughts and reactions on this transformative ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion. Your support is everything.